Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Tonight we are going to be having a good old-fashioned mic shootout. We are going to be featuring two different types of small diaphragm condenser microphones, both extremely popular for drum overheads, and in this case tonight we're also going to have these be a secondary microphone for guitar reamping. So those are two tests that we're going to have tonight. And these are the two microphones. We are going to be featuring the Neumann KM184. This is the cardioid pattern version of the microphone. And we are going to have the Lewitt LCT 140 Air. And I got my like-minded creators partner, Zaki Ali, right here. And Greg Talfayan, who is on his way with his cymbals to play some drums, will be here shortly. So I am always harping on my channel, guys, about how you do not need to spend an astronomical amount of money to get amazing results. These Neumanns are fantastic small diaphragm condensers, but just one of these retails for $850 as of the recording of this video on Sweetwater. And I got a stereo matched pair of the Lewitts for $300. So I can get 2.5 matched stereo pair Lewitt 140 Airs versus one KM184. Now, my personal opinion, I think that's just batshit crazy, but these are legendary drum overheads and small diaphragm condensers. These are a powerhouse microphone, and they definitely own their reputation. So right out of the gate, just by simply handling this, even though the LCT 140 Airs are bigger microphones, these are nowhere near the same density. So the Neumanns are a little bit heavier than the Lewitts, which is kind of crazy. You would think that the Lewitts weigh more, but no, the Neumanns weigh a lot more in my hands. And the most obvious difference between these guys is the Lewitts have a couple customizable switches here. So they have two different sound characteristics. They have their stock sound profile, and then they have another one where it's cranked a little bit in the upper mids. I've never used the latter. I always use the linear one because I like to EQ in post. I don't want the microphone to do it for me that much, and it's been getting good results since I mostly use these for overheads. We have a filter, either linear, completely off, or 80 hertz. And then we have a pad, which is excellent if you are micing these close and the drummer has insanely loud cymbals. You have pad at 0, obviously, off, or minus 12 dB. You don't get any of these features on the Neumann, but you buy the Neumann because you want the Neumann. And that's why people buy these microphones. So we are going to have two completely different microphones here doing two very commonly used tasks for these microphones, specifically drum overheads, but we also want to get a secondary mic for guitar reamping. Now, Zaki, first impression holding the Lewitts versus the Neumann. The Neumann looks like it weighs a few grams more than the Lewitts.
Oh yeah, it's definitely heavier. It feels like the casing on this might be a plastic, while this is a metal. But
is it plastic? Yeah, it feels plasticky.
Yeah, I mean that's all it really is. But it's a casing at the end of the day, you know. I don't know if that makes a difference in like different temperature settings. Maybe something to consider.
Now these, I've never been more completely sold on a microphone in my whole life of just using these. When I first started out, I got a couple of SM57s and really hoped for the best, but when I was starting drum recording, I used my very first pair of overheads were Behringer B2 large diaphragm condensers. Then I moved over to the MXL V63Ms, which is what we used in our last video where we compared with these microphones with the Basin. And now I switched to these LCD 140 Airs after only seeing a couple of reviews on these. I've been looking for some small diaphragm condensers. I have a couple of Behringer C2s at dingbats I used for the stage overheads, but I wanted to get these specifically for the shows in Florida, and I don't have to do anything with these microphones in post. I just have to put on a high pass filter, and that's like 90% of the work done. These things are amazing. I've never been more completely sold on microphones in my life, but I want to also have a good comparison between these and the name brand Neumann's, because again, a stereo pair of these is about $300, and one of those, if you buy them individually, is $850 retailed on Sweetwater. So we're going to see if it sounds 5 times more expensive and 5 times nicer than this.
I think the one thing I've noticed with these, specifically, as well using as overheads, it'll give a lot of highs, extra highs actually. So what you end up doing is cutting some out, but I guess the philosophy is like, if you have it, you're better off having more of it and cutting it than having too little of it and trying to boost it to get it. So for overheads, it's particularly really nice for cymbal detail, and I end up compressing it a significant amount, and then it's processed, and with all of that and the right frequencies tamed, it's a beautiful sound.
Then I think we should do 2 different tests when we get to overheads. We're going to do one with the sound profile on linear, and then I'll flip the sound profile so it has that little extra kick in the high end.
Okay.
It's because from many people on the forums, they say that these sound with this extra sound profile on, these sound very comparable to that. So I want to put this to the test.
Nice.
So right now, I think the first thing we're going to do is set this up for reamping. So this is your go-to reamping setup. So you want to talk about like what you got going on here?
Sure. So basically 57 straight on KM184, also aligned to the same point on really where the cone and the cap meet, and they're basically positioned to phase cancel. And the reason why the KM184 works so nicely with the SM57 is really the size of the diaphragm. You can get it physically closer and get more phase cancellation. This is a really nice technique for leads, for rhythm, just reamping the cab in general. I've also found that, experimented with parallel with the 57 and the KM184, which is also a really nice sound, and also at 45 degrees, offset from the 57. However, I feel like for this particular cab, based on the distance of the speaker, the most amount of phase cancellation I found I was getting was about 30 degrees. Position the way it is on the cab right now. So reamp setup currently is, it's like,
and those are the completely dry tracks from the guitar itself.
Right. It's a guitar straight out into Portico channel, but I'm just going into the DI, so it's the same as Neve RNDI.
Right.
Straight from the guitar. All it's doing, unbalancing the signal. It's recorded on here, edited, perfected.
Not through your pedals or anything? Just
no pedals,
straight
guitar.
Okay.
So then I make sure the volume's set to 0. All the amp simulators are off and no plugins or anything.
Because you use an amp sim just for like scratch, just to get like a feel. Yeah,
exactly. So now I'm sending it out. It's output 4 from the interface here, which is going into this reamp box. Reamp box basically unbalances the signal that was balanced while going into DI.
And that goes into the jack of the amp.
Yep. And then amp to cab. Cab is mic'd up by these 2 mics. These 2 mics are then running into these shelfer channels. And we're just going to feed the signal through, and it's going to play in real time and capture the cabinet's tone.
So we're going to test the Neumann microphone first because it's set up right now in Zachy's ideal position, and then we'll switch out the KM184s for the Lewitt, and then Zachy's going to do his technique. We're going to see how it sounds comparatively with the same exact guitar performance, with the same settings on the amp, and the same signal flow back in the Pro Tools. So let's take a listen to the Neumann.
Leads are starting at like measure 17, so I just fast forwarded it to that section. And let me just solo that, make sure volume's at 0. You got to make sure, obviously, when you're recording, that you're going in at a healthy level of -6 to -8 decibels, so that when I set the volume to 0 on the reamp, it's played through the amp as if
you were playing it live.
Right, and it's the same amount of signal.
And this is a very common technique used by studios everywhere to just make sure that, if you track, like if Zachy were to record this straight without any DI backup, he's stuck with whatever tone is printed on here. So if he wants to go back and change the tone for whatever reason, he's going to have to remic it, get it set up. And you know this as much as I do, Zachy. If you take away the microphones and move them even the slightest, it's going to sound almost completely different. Absolutely. If you want to do it again. So you're going to have to basically retrack the whole song all over again. So always record a DI backup of your guitars, no matter what it is you're doing.
It really kind of sets a difference between the tracking aspect of the process and the mixing aspect, where you could really focus on capturing the tone rather than the playing, and there's too much going on. So it's really nice in that sense. Also, if this amp doesn't work, we just plug it into this amp and then plug it into, there's a lot of
There's plenty of options to choose from, especially in this place.
Yeah. And then, combination with, even on the digital end.
Although just from knowing you for all these years, dude, this PV, you got this dialed in so good. Like, this is your signature sound right here with this PV amp. So for you guitar nerds out there, they're going to ask what the amp settings are. Here's a slow pan shot of his settings.
Lead channel. This is basically pre-gain for lead, post-gain for lead. And this is the EQ. And then presence, resonance. There's also a built-in boost on the amp, which is on. Level is about 3/4 of the way, and tone as well. And then also have, for tracking the lead specifically, I have the effects loop, this delay pedal, this Empress tape delay plugged into the effects loop. And I'm going to just put a little light delay. It's a really cool effect to actually have a delay on the reamp process for the leads, and then combine it with another delay, where the delays kind of create this natural, like effect to it. It's a really nice, pleasing effect. Basically.
For the sake of the test, I know you have your specific sound dialed into the shuffle channel. Is there any way to just like use the input from this and just bypass whatever EQ you're using, just so?
There's no EQ right now. So EQ's on would be basically that.
Okay.
EQ's turned off, compression's turned off. There's no silk.
So this is basically just a glorified input slot right now.
Yeah. Right now we're just running through the preamp section right here.
So you're getting the basically all the backline Zachy explained. So the signal flow you're going to hear is speakers to microphone to Neve preamp into Pro Tools.
Also on this, so the 57 is running into this one. On this one, I got the KM184. There's the Phantom Power 48 volt, and then also it's important. If you look at where the gain is at, it's a lot lower for the KM184. It's more condenser microphone, more sensitive. However, it's important to gain match them too, for the sake of phase canceling it properly. And so when we set these up on the Neve Shelfords, I could just flip the phase right there, and if you run pink noise through the amp, actually you can, and flip the phase. If you listen on headphones, it'll basically cancel out when you're in the right spot and find the sweet spot. Unflip the phase, and then all of a sudden you're getting all the tone. The speaker.
You get the tone that we all know from the SM57, and then you get the tone from the Neumann as like a nice little. It's basically adding just a little bit of salt on top of a nice dish.
And if you
can
really
tell I'm hungry right now.
Particular with it, put your ear up to the speakers, like listen and see which one.
Don't blast it at full strength though when you put your ears up to the speaker.
Of course, but you can actually hear the difference. One thing I noticed is this speaker is actually the first one in the chain when it's plugged into the back. I just replaced the inputs on the back, and I don't know if that means there's less cable going to that speaker, so it's getting a little bit hotter of a.
Do you know what speakers are in this cab?
These are.
Or the speaker, at least that this is mic'd up, is this a V30?
These are, no, they're not V30s, they're G12s, vintage G12s.
Okay.
Celestion, yeah.
Okay. This is the Lewitt.
Yeah.
This is a Lewitt in flat profile.
I feel like this is a nice drawn out section right here. Let's check out what the high mid's boosted.
Yeah, let's
Next reamp. Alright. That's nice.
Oh, you hear the plucking.
Yeah.
You hear the plucking of the strings just a little bit more clearly.
Yeah. Also, oh yeah, it's way different by itself. That's without.
Oh wow, what a difference!
Without. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow, what a dramatic difference between
it's like
that.
a different microphone.
I almost like the boosted one better for this aspect.
Yeah, I think it blends a little better with the 57.
Again, it will also depend on what kind of guitar player you are.
Right.
For Zacky's tone, I think this sounds a lot better than the flat profile.
Yeah. I want to see. That's the KM184.
Doesn't sound as bright.
Yeah. Also, listen to it by itself. That's so different.
Can you flip between the Neumann flat Lewitt and boosted Lewitt?
Yeah. Let's go.
So this is Neumann.
Lewitt flat.
Lewitt flat. Oh my god, Lewitt boosted.
Yeah, Lewitt boosted is nice. Lewitt boosted and Neumann.
The Lewitt boosted sounds like it has a little more oomph in the real, like, sharp highs.
Yeah. There's definitely a little more low end, low mid on
the Neumann.
Yeah.
Wow.
So another thing, the cab naturally catches a little bit of extra low end, and you end up either EQing out some of the low end, compressing it, multiband compressing it a little bit. So, typically a little bit of that on the leads will be nice before adding any effects, chorus, delays, reverbs, and that'll be in addition to the delay that was captured on the reamp itself. So, but yeah.
What did you think of the Lewitt though?
I think it's a great mic. I mean, definitely gets the job done. Yeah, I think the only thing about the Lewitt is that it's a bigger microphone, so you physically just can't get as much phase cancellation as the KM184, which is, the phase cancellation is nice. I think what it's doing upon hearing it from there, like you hear, like the low end of both mics, it's like more unified as like one tone, which is essentially, the point, I guess, because then you add the effects to it after.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, no, they both sound really good. It's totally workable. I'm actually really curious to hear how this does on the
drum overheads.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have everything all set up here now. There are multiple ways to mic overheads. You have XY, a couple of other popular techniques, but here we are using spaced pair overheads. So we have the KM184 Neumanns and the Lewitts in the same exact position with the same distance. They are equal distance away from the loudest source on the drum kit, which is the snare drum. And with how Greg hits his snare drum, it's definitely going to be the loudest thing in this room. So we have the overheads spaced out like this, and we are now going to have Greg play some drums. We are not going to be using this tom microphone right here. He's going to play the lighter tom 1 here and the floor. We also have the Beta 52 in the kick. We have a Beta 57A on bottom snare and a 57 on top of the snare. So we are now getting everything in recording order, and Greg's going to play some drums here for us today. And we are going to flip between the Neumanns and the Lewitts. And the Lewitts for this test are on the flat profile. And then we'll record another take with the Lewitt profiles set to the elevated high-end boost. So you're going to get all of that in multi-track form at the conclusion of this. So Zachy is getting everything set up now in Pro Tools. And let's let Greg play some drums.
You know what? Let me just process everything quickly in like 2 minutes. We can get like an accurate test, but they sound nice. If we check out flat.
I like it boosted more.
Yeah, it sounds better on
Boosted for sure sounds better.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that actually a little sizzle. And this is this is like a fuller sound. I don't know.
Neumann sound a little more like polished in the mid-range, but like that extra crack from the Lewitt sound good.
Yeah.
Especially the attack on the
Snare.
on the snare and the toms.
Yep.
So if you were in a pinch and you only had kick, snare, and overheads,
Oh, you can make it work.
you can definitely make this work with those mics in the boosted high profile setting.
So I'm gonna go with the Blackface 1176 on the Slate Digital. I'm really trying to sing.
Are these Neumanns?
Yeah. A little bit of compression on the cymbals, not just the snare. So I'm gonna dial the mix down. Now I can turn down the overhead. Okay. So no prints or anything here. This is all just feeding into a drum bus. This is with the overhead set as the Neumann.
What are these now?
Neumanns. Now if I mute the Neumanns, and nice. This is now
Wow.
yeah.
Those are the Lewitts with the boosted high end, right?
No, that's the flat. That's the flat. This is the boosted high end. This is actually really nice.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Damn.
And then again, listen to KM184s.
I don't know, man.
There's an aspect of it. I mean, they're different. There's like a cleanliness to the KM184. I don't know.
Can we hear just the overheads? Just the KM and then flip to the Lewitts?
Yep. And now this is with a little bit of compression on it, so it really brings out the characteristic of it.
These are just the Lewitts?
KM.
These are the Neumanns, okay.
Yeah. Boosted highs.
Oh yeah, now I definitely hear the boosted high end on that.
Yeah, I haven't notched any frequencies on this, so like there's definitely, you know, in the case of a mix, probably tame some of those high frequencies in there, but it sounds really nice. Also, okay, that's about gain matched. Okay, and then if we go to the
No,
Flat?
normal flat profile on the Lewitts versus the KMs.
Lewitts,
These are the Lewitts?
yeah. Significant amount of compression, 1176 style. Now if we go to Neumanns. There's totally like a mid like body in this, but I like the crisp of the highs on the Lewitt also. Something like
I think
this
with-
would really bring this section here would be nice to really hear the difference, because just going riding on the crash. There we go. And how those sound with the drum kit. Go to Lewitt's. That sounds great. And then same section of Neumann's.
The Neumann sound, I think, a little more full in the mid-range, but the high-end crispiness and attack from the Lewitts, just for my ears at least,
It sounds great.
I think that sounds better to me at least.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things. I feel like with the high focus boost, you're definitely getting, obviously more high mids, and it sounds really nice on the cymbals. The one thing I notice is that the Neumann has this body to the snare and the toms that like blends really well with the
close mics.
Right. And it's almost like when I boost, I specifically didn't cut any frequencies on the overheads just to kind of see what we're getting, to see if we're getting a lot or too much. And I normally cut high frequencies on the Neumann, so I would definitely be cutting high frequencies on the Lewitt because it seems like we're getting more of that. But also, the Neumanns are kind of like more of like a washy sort of sound.
Yeah.
Where I feel like the Lewitt gets a little bit more like stick definition, which is an interesting characteristic from a drummer's perspective. When it comes to mic choice and genre you're playing and stuff. Yeah, I mean, sounds pretty cool. Hearing it compressed it's really cool. I think it's like thinking about it in terms of what having that little bit of mid body can favor in the mix versus not, and so I guess the big thing is like it sounds really nice for snare, the way the compression acts on the snare and how the snare blends with the snare top and bottom mic on the Neumanns, and then whereas you're not going to get as much of that sort of push from the snare on the Lewitts, but they also have that like crisp high end detail, which could be nicer for more like, I guess like thrashing, like where you're getting a lot of like maybe like punk rock or something. We're getting a lot of cymbal action.
Yeah.
But yeah, also the other thing is getting less kick bleed in like different situations. Like I think as far as like a live mic, I'd be hesitant to bring the KM184s out and like use them in a setting. And I think like that. And I think those Lewitts would be amazing for something like that.
There you go.
And they sound good. They sound really good.
And for the price point,
For the
like
price point,
they are an
price
awesome
point's
bang for buck.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really what it is. I think at the end of the day, like for the price point, it's phenomenal. So there's nothing bad about it.
Two different mics, two amazing different sounds of the mics, and two completely different price points. So really, guys, again, you guys are going to get both of these sets of multi-tracks, and you'll be able to experiment with this yourself. What sounds better to you? Do you like the Neumanns or do you like the Lewitts? And if you like the Lewitts better, which do you like better? Which setting do you like better on the Lewitts? Do you like the flat profile or the boosted high-end profile? So I really enjoy making this content because we get like a really nice perspective of real world use with microphone shootouts. And really, guys, it comes down to whatever sounds good for you is the best microphone for you. Guys, thank you as always for helping out with these videos.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
He is Greg Telfayan. He is Zaki Ali. Their socials are in the description. Follow them. They're amazing musicians and really just awesome people in general. And thank you guys for watching. Catch you in the next one. Peace.